Donald Trump's speech at Charlie Kirk's memorial didn't just mourn a life, it detonated a moment. The room held its breath, cameras locked in, and then came the line that hijacked every timeline and headline within minutes. The kind of line you hear once and instantly know it's going to travel. Trump paused, squared himself to the crowd, and claimed Charlie's final plea to him was only 2 words: "Save Chicago." The stadium rose like a wave. Some people cheered from the gut. Others glanced at each other, processing what they just heard. Within minutes, that phrase broke loose online. Clips looped on X, TikTok edits multiplied, and debate kicked off in real time. It felt like a rallying cry to some and a scripted flourish to others. But either way, it owned the night. The impact wasn't just in the words, it was in the timing. This statement landed inside a memorial filled with grief, anger, and devotion. Not a press conference, not a rally, but a goodbye. That's what made it ring so loudly. A eulogy line suddenly doubled as a mission statement. People didn't know whether to stand in silence or stand to applaud. And that tension, raw, unresolved, kept the clip replaying in millions of minds. Pull back for a second, the venue was massive, the lighting solemn, the crowd a mix of friends, family, loyal supporters, and political heavyweights. Voices fell to whispers as each speaker shared their piece of Charlie's legacy. You could feel the weight. This wasn't just a ceremony, it was an event with stakes. Charlie wasn't merely a personality to this audience, he represented a fight they believe is unfinished. That's why Trump's words hit like a flare in the dark. From the moment he stepped in, Trump carried the room's energy like a live wire. Not soft-footed, not tentative. He knew every camera was pointed straight at the podium. His delivery swung between words meant to honor and words meant to spark. One moment, he sounded like a friend sharing memories. The next, like a general mapping the road ahead. That blend kept the crowd leaning forward, waiting for the next sentence to land. He described Charlie in terms that don't fade easily: a fighter, a patriot, a voice that didn't flinch when the heat came. He told stories that painted Charlie not just as an influencer, but as a builder, someone who created spaces for young people, who pushed past heckles, who kept talking when others fell silent. These stories softened the room, turned the stadium smaller, more intimate, just enough for people to feel like they knew him personally. Then he scaled it back up. Trump connected Charlie's life to a bigger story, a cause larger than any single person. He framed Charlie as the spark within a movement, and himself as the one picking up the torch. The crowd understood the subtext. For supporters, that's exactly what they wanted to hear. They saw it as respect in action, keeping Charlie's mission alive, not letting his memory be a quiet statue on a shelf. For critics, it crossed a line. A memorial turned into a moment for messaging. That clash is what made the night impossible to ignore. The controversy wasn't around whether Charlie deserved tribute, it was around how that tribute was framed and what it was designed to accomplish. The "Save Chicago" phrase became the perfect pressure point. It's short, punchy, and loaded. Fans treated it like a promise. Detractors treated it like a slogan. And because it references a real city with real grief, real fear, and real politics, the phrase came attached to 1,000 opinions. That instant friction is what makes a clip go nuclear. It invites every viewer to pick a side. Online, you could watch the split happening in real time. Supporters cut the clip to the exact moment those 2 words dropped and captioned it like a vow. Critics cut it 10 seconds earlier or later to frame the tone differently. Memes appeared almost instantly, some dead serious, some mocking, some painfully funny. In the chaos of social media, the clip became both a rallying cry and raw material for satire. That duality made it unstoppable. News outlets didn't hold back either. Some highlighted the emotional sweep of the eulogy, others raised eyebrows at the political edges. Headlines argued with each other, panels spun up, late-night monologues rehearsed. Editorials asked whether a memorial can ever be just a memorial in the modern age. The discourse didn't dilute the clip, it amplified it. Whenever the narrative fractures, people click more, argue more, and share more. Inside the stadium, the reactions were layered. You could see faces in tears when Trump focused on Charlie's character, how he treated people one-on-one, how he believed in giving young voices a microphone. You could also see postures stiffen when the speech shifted toward national crisis talk. That push-pull shaped the emotional rhythm. Swell, quiet, swell. Every rise and fall kept people suspended, waiting for the next beat. Trump backed the tribute with personal touches. Off-camera calls, moments of advice, the times Charlie didn't take the easy route. Those details matter in speeches like this. They make the public figure feel human again. They remind the audience that consequence and connection often sit in the same chair. And for a few minutes, the political armor comes off, or at least looks like it might. But just as the room settled into grief, the message snapped back to mission. That's what drove the conversation later. Was it empathy shaped into action, or action wrapped in empathy? People didn't agree, and maybe they never will. That disagreement is precisely why the soundbite traveled farther than the venue's walls. You can chart the aftershocks. Hashtags like None Save Chicago rose fast. Comment sections filled with "This is leadership" and "This is exploitation" lined up like two crowds facing each other on a street. Local voices from Chicago threaded in, some exhausted, some defensive, some hopeful, many angry. In the days after, think pieces popped up asking whether grief and messaging can ever really be separated when the person being honored stood waist-deep in politics. Why eulogies should belong to families and friends more than to movements and headlines. The debate didn't close. It widened, and every widening fuels another cycle of views. What gave the line staying power wasn't just controversy, it was the suggestion of a promise. Save Chicago begs a follow-up. Save how? With what? From whom? That open loop is gold for attention. It invites speculation, invites opponents to challenge, invites supporters to defend. At the heart of the speech, there was also something raw. The loss of a young man who built a platform fast and carried a message hard. You could feel the absence, even as the politics thickened. Grief doesn't cancel the argument, and argument doesn't cancel grief. Both lived in that room at the same time. That uneasy coexistence is what made the night feel heavy and unforgettable. Trump's eulogies often double as mirrors. They reflect the person he's honoring, but they also reflect his own story, his fights, his goals, his narrative. Here, the reflection was obvious. He presented Charlie's life as aligned with his agenda. To supporters, that meant continuity. To critics, that meant appropriation. The framing changed depending on who was watching, but the effect didn't. People kept watching. Rumors and commentary piled on. Some voices suggested the line had been discussed in private before the service. Others claimed it was spontaneous. No one outside the inner circle really knows. And that uncertainty is gasoline for online discourse. Meanwhile, the human details stayed close to the surface. Family in the front rows, friends with memories that don't fit in headlines, an organization figuring out what leadership looks like after the unthinkable. Those details remind viewers there's a cost to public spectacle. A family's grief can become a public campfire where strangers argue over the flames. It's brutal, but it's the reality of modern media. The bigger picture matters. In the long arc of a campaign, moments like this get folded into a broader narrative. Law and order, decay and renewal, toughness and rescue. Saying "Save Chicago" inside a memorial didn't just live as a tribute line. It fit into months of messaging about cities, crime, and federal muscle. That's why it resonated, and why it outraged. It slid neatly into a story that was already being told. You could see strategy in the simplicity. 2 words were enough to light up every side of the conversation. It didn't require policy detail or a new plan on paper. It required a phrase you could shout or mock in equal measure. That's the anatomy of virality. Short, charged, portable. It sticks because it means different things to different people, and everyone feels compelled to weigh in. And yet, there's no denying the emotional core. Whatever you believe about motives, the weight of loss was real in that stadium. The crowd felt it. The pauses held it. The stories carried it. Even the controversy, in a twisted way, acknowledged the size of the hole left behind. People don't fight over small things. They fight over moments that matter. As the lights dimmed, people walked out carrying different truths. Some left inspired, ready to turn sorrow into action. Some left unsettled, convinced a line had been crossed. Some left simply sad, replaying memories that won't upload to any platform. All of them left talking, and that, in the end, is its own kind of victory for a message designed to travel. The legacy of the night sits in an unresolved question that keeps returning like an echo. Was this a heartfelt promise made in grief, or a calculated line crafted to dominate the cycle? Depending on where you stand, the answer is either obvious or impossible. The power of the moment is that it forces you to answer it all. Here's what no one can dispute. The phrase worked. It pierced through noise, fused a tribute with a mission, and turned a memorial into a national flashpoint. That doesn't make it right or wrong. It makes it effective, an arrow that found the bloodstream of attention and ran with it. And that brings us back to the man at the center of the loss. Beyond the hashtags and headlines, Charlie's work built rooms full of energy. He was a magnet for conflict and conversation, a builder of rallies and arguments. The memorial reflected that reality perfectly. It was crowded, loud, divided, emotional, exactly the kind of stage that follows a life lived in the bright center of public debate. So, the clip will keep circulating, the arguments will keep recycling, new details will get dragged in, new promises will be attached. This is how modern memory works. Not a page in a family album, but a reel that never really stops. In that loop, the two words stay pinned to the top, daring someone, anyone, to prove them true or call them out. In the end, the question we can't stop circling is simple and unsettling. Did the speech honor a friend or conscript him into a larger fight? Maybe both, maybe neither. Maybe the only honest answer is that grief and power rarely meet without sparks. And on this night, the sparks were impossible to miss. If there's anything to take away, it's that a single line can shape a legacy as much as a lifetime of work. Not because the line is more important, but because the line survives. It survives in feeds, in arguments. So the memorial closes, the cameras power down, and people head home with the phrase still ringing in their ears, the promise, the provocation, the dare. Save Chicago. What comes next will decide whether that eulogy was a moment of pure loyalty or the sharpest move in a never-ending game. Either way, the world is watching, refreshing, arguing, and waiting for the next line to drop.